Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHDF1, and welcome to the first live stream and live podcast episode of 2020. It's been quite a long time, and it definitely feels a long time since I last did this. I think it was, just before Christmas, the last time we did one of these? Or just after Christmas, can't remember exactly, but it feels as though it's been a very long time, and thankfully I'm now back to do these live streams, and thankfully the season is about to get underway, isn't it? Because this time next week we are going to be kicking off the car reveals for 2020. So thankfully Formula 1 in 2020 is not that far away. Hopefully you guys, no matter what time it is, no matter what you're doing in the world, hopefully you're having a good day. Before we get into though this podcast episode, and by the way, Nib will not be on tonight. I don't know why, I just haven't heard from him. He was supposed to be on tonight. I'm sure I'll hear later why he isn't able to appear, but Nib won't be on tonight. But I just need to talk about a couple things before we get into looking at, the news so far in 2020 in Formula 1. First off, I need to let you guys know what the stories are going to be in this podcast tonight. So what we're going to look at is Mercedes and the rumours about them holding a board meeting, about them possibly quitting Formula 1 and their apparent issues with their new power unit for 2020. We're going to also talk about Ferrari and the possible trouble with their new car for 2020 as well. We're going to talk about Max Verstappen signing a new contract at Red Bull, Kubica becoming the Alfa Romeo test driver, and also Racing Point becoming Aston Martin for 2021, and a couple other bits of news as well. So that's what this show is going to be. But also I need to let you guys know what the plan for content is, for the rest of this month, because there has been a sad change of plan for content during this month. So during the car reveals, what the plan is me and Nib to do exactly what we did last year, except it will not be a live stream car reveal type of format. What it will be is a recorded video format. So again, the only difference is going to be it will be a recorded video and not a live stream, meaning that we'll be able to get the whole video car reveal analysis out there quicker than we could before last year with a live stream. So that's what we're going to be doing for the car reveals. And of course, Ferrari are revealing their car next Tuesday around the similar time it is right now. And then you've got Renault and Red Bull on the Wednesday, McLaren on the Thursday, Mercedes and Alfa Tauri on the Friday, I think it is, maybe incorrect. If anyone wants to correct me, go ahead and do so. And then the following Monday, it's Racing Point and Williams. And then the first day of testing, it's Haas and Alfa Romeo. So those are the car reveals for 2020. And we will try to cover as much of it as we can. But the sad change of plan is that sadly I cannot go to pre-season testing like I did for the second half of testing last year. The main reason is money. The reason is because, if you guys didn't know, it is actually very, very expensive to go to testing. To get out there, to go to all the days of testing, accommodation, all of that stuff. It is a very expensive trip, and I just don't have at the moment the money to be able to afford such a trip. But I will be doing something instead of that. What I'm going to do is do watch-alongs for testing, because of course, if you don't know, the days of testing are going to be on Sky Sports F1 from the very first minute of testing starting in the morning, and then until 5 o'clock p.m. UK time, or 6 p.m. Local time. So what I'll do is a watch along for each day of testing. We'll do the morning session, then have a quick break, and then I'll do the afternoon session, vice versa. So that is the plan for content this month. All this month is going to be car reveals and testing. Then of course, once we get into March, it will be the first two races of the season, middle of March, and slightly towards the end of March for Bahrain. And then, of course, the middle of March race, the first race of 2020, is Australia. But I think now I've rambled long enough. Let's get into some of the news that we've missed over the last month or so far in 2020. So let's first start off with Mercedes-Benz. Now, apparently, Mercedes... We'll start off with the power unit story, which is, for me, complete bullshit. I really think it is. And if anyone out there actually believes this story with their power unit, then you are falling for the same trap they've been pulling for, 5 years now. So apparently, Mercedes are having issues with their power units. Of course, they want to reclaim the title of having the most power in Formula 1. And apparently, in getting back to that goal, they are having some issues. It isn't true, guys. Come on. How many times last year did they do this? Did they say, our car's not that good. We're going to struggle at this race. Going to struggle at that race. Ferrari are looking good. Red Bull are looking good. How many times? How many times did they do this? And, during 2019, ended up winning anyway. It's probably not true. I'm going to, make a safe guess there and say that it is probably not true. If anyone out there believes that, then, especially if you're a Ferrari or Red Bull fan, then you're going to get what you deserve once the season starts, and they probably end up still having the best car. But the other story that's come out is that Mercedes are holding a board meeting, I believe, around, I think it's in the next week or so. The main Mercedes company, not the team, the main company is holding a board meeting, and apparently their Formula 1 future is up for, I guess, debate. Now, I also don't believe this. I think there's more truth probably in this, to be honest, than the other story, but I don't think Mercedes are leaving Formula 1. They are currently the best team in the sport. They've dominated the sport for the last 6 years. Apparently, according to Karun Chandhok, who tweeted about this on Twitter, apparently they're continuing to build more and more things at the base in Brackley. So clearly they're not planning on quitting, or else they wouldn't be building more stuff that's coming, of course, for 2021 and beyond. I just don't see why they would quit. I mean, maybe if they wanted to really go all in on Formula E, it could make sense if that's what their, reasoning was. But again, they're dominating Formula 1, and it's not like they're really having to, not dominate, but having to spend tons of cash like maybe they had to before, or to put in as much effort as they had to before to win, because they've got such a good team at Brackley and Brixworth that, they're in such a comfortable position. Why give that up? Why give up the domination they've worked so hard for to, Ferrari or Red Bull? Why give that up? If they're going to leave, once the domination's over, at least let it be them being finally beaten or toppled. Don't, just quit and let the other teams then start winning themselves. I think that would be a pretty poor way for them to go out, to be honest. I know some people say, go out on top. It's a great way to go out, but I just think, I think it's better to be knocked off your perch and then go out than, go out on top, to be honest. But yeah, Mercedes, are they going to quit? Probably not. I mean, Ferrari and Red Bull and their fans of those respective teams, and the fans of Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen, any other team or driver will be so hopeful that that is true, that Mercedes are going to quit Formula 1. Sorry, guys, but it probably is not going to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen for quite a long time, in my opinion. But now let's go on to Ferrari. And don't worry, guys, I will come to you guys in a moment in the chat. I just want to get into Ferrari, though, very quickly, because there has been some news about Ferrari, about their new 2020 car. Now, with Ferrari, of course, because they are the biggest name in Formula 1, and they have so much fanfare around them, of course, there's going to be constant rumours and talk about how Ferrari are going to do this season and going into the future. And apparently, according to rumours, again, I stress, it is only a rumour, it could be complete rubbish. Ferrari apparently are having trouble with their 2020 car. Apparently, as they're working on their car in the wind tunnel, and they're trying to make the car, of course, as aerodynamically efficient as possible, the engineers at Ferrari are not happy with the data they have been getting back from their wind tunnel and all the, CFD and all of that stuff. Now, again, this might be complete rubbish, but it's most likely going to be more so truthful because, let's be honest, this is Ferrari. This is such a Ferrari story, isn't it? How 2019, such a disappointing season. Of course, we knew what the issues with their car were, and everyone knew what they had to try and fix for 2020. And again, it's just such a Ferrari story, getting their car wrong so early on and having trouble with their car. It might be completely untrue and they might actually be quick, and this might be them kind of trying to do a Mercedes and sandbag, but I think this is more so truthful. I don't think they'll be, if their car is maybe not as aerodynamically efficient as the engineers at Ferrari want it to be, I don't think it'll mean they'll be fighting Racing Point in Australia or anything, but it probably will mean that they'll be behind Mercedes and Red Bull in 2020, if this is actually true. But again, because it's Ferrari, it probably is. They're just such a laughing stock of Formula 1 right now. I know they're still, top 2 or top 3 on the grid in terms of speed, but let's be honest, that is because of money and resources, not because the actual personnel there are, that good or as good as others in the midfield, at their job. They're absolutely, the personnel there is not doing well enough. So wouldn't be a surprise if they got the 2020 Ferrari car wrong, and it would just be the most Ferrari way to start a season, wouldn't it? But let me quickly, before I get on to the next story, come to you guys in the chat and see what you guys have to say about the story so far. Make done. What will happen with the Chinese Grand Prix? I will get onto that later on. I am going to cover that later on. Ronan Brady, Chazza, we had the same about the 2018 car. We did, but there was some truth in it because I think in testing in 2018, the Ferrari wasn't that great. And even at the first race, I don't think the Ferrari car was that, special. I think it just took Ferrari a couple months maybe to really get on top of their car. A couple of months later than they ideally would have wanted it to be. Doz Day says, now I want to see Red Bull beat and fair and square. I agree, if Merkley is on top would suck. It would be great to see this Mercedes team be beaten in terms of an epic championship battle, because if anyone is going to beat Mercedes, it's going to be a team of pretty special and great people. And I think the only team on the grid that could probably do that is Red Bull Racing. I don't think Ferrari are capable of it because clearly they've shown their personnel just isn't good enough. But I just think it would be great if Mercedes are going to lose or going to go out of Formula 1. It would be great to see them be beaten so that if they do leave, it's not just a case of, well, yeah, these teams are now winning, but they're still not. If Mercedes were still in the sport kind of thing, they wouldn't still win type of thing. I would rather see a new team rise to the top before the Silver Arrows left. Formula 1, Benji Matthew, do you hate Vettel? No. Right, let's find some other comments quickly. Then we'll get on to the Max Verstappen story. Ian, didn't they win the first race in 2018? They did, but they were not pace-wise. They did not have the pace to win the race. They won the race basically because the virtual safety car came out at the exact right time. Had nothing to do with pace at all. It was mainly luck, to be honest. Gina, hello chat and Chazza. Just wanted to say I miss F1 and Chazza's watch along so much, but soon we will get to, or we will start, absolutely. And we are, well, in terms of the watch-alongs, we're not far away from that because, again, as I just said, I will be doing testing watch-alongs, and they'll be starting in, 2 weeks, when, of course, testing does start. So, not far now until we get underway. Let's look at some others here, other comments. Mike, I remember the Renault 1,000 horsepower story and what Max said about that. Also, that's another thing I forgot to put in with the imagery of tonight's stream. Renault came out a couple of weeks ago, and you may have seen me tweet about it if you follow me on Twitter. I was laughing at it because it's not true. Renault saying that they're now ahead of Mercedes and Honda when it comes to power, and they're not that far behind Ferrari, which again is complete rubbish. The evidence of 2019 clearly shows that they're not ahead of Mercedes. Yes, at couple power tracks they were good, but if you look at the speed traps and the maximum speeds and all of that, they were not ahead of all Mercedes-powered cars. They were not. And I think Renault, to be honest, last season kind of did a Ferrari in terms of setting their car up aerodynamically to be, or to have less drag. So they were going to be quicker on the straights anyway. And they were definitely quicker in a straight line than McLaren were in 2019. So I think that also was a factor behind why Renault was so quick at, Monza and Canada and races like that. So, yeah, that was absolutely laughable, that story. Absolutely laughable. I will say, though, if the evidence with the speed traps, maximum speeds, everything is there next year for Renault to be ahead of them in terms of power, then I will say that. But the evidence isn't there to support that claim. So, no. Right, let's find couple more if I can. Sebastian, we can say Ferrari are a bad team, but they give better cars to their drivers than Red Bull have these last couple years. In terms of the overall car, yeah. I think Red Bull are a better team than Ferrari, for sure. I think just the entire package just hasn't come together as much for Red Bull as it has done for Ferrari. Of course, Ferrari being a works team does help, and Red Bull, of course, in 2018 had the whole Renault thing, and then 2019 was the first year of Honda, which was always going to be a bit difficult at times, and it was. But if Red Bull and Honda keep, working hard and getting better, I don't really, if Ferrari continued down this road, I don't really see Ferrari being that much more successful than Red Bull, or really being better than Red Bull at all. But let's find one more comment, and then we'll get on to Max Verstappen. Sable says Ferrari just downplay their car. I think it will be better than the post-Belgium car last year. If they're going to contend for the championship, then it has to be kind of how it was around Singapore, Russia, at the very least. But again, as I said before, it's Ferrari. They will probably, fuck it up, and they'll probably, even if they have the best car, still end up getting a few less wins than they really should. That's just the way Ferrari are, and it's sad because if they were a team like Red Bull that when they got the chance, they took it a lot more times than they didn't, 2019 would have been a lot closer, 2018, 2017, so on and so forth. It is a real shame, but you got to call them out on it. But yeah, let's now go on to Max Verstappen, who has, of course, signed a new contract at Red Bull Racing until I think 2024, I think it might be. If I am wrong, make sure to correct me. If it is, 2023 or something like that. But I think this is actually a very smart decision, and here's why. Because, one, Red Bull and Honda, they're going places, without a doubt. They are going to be a good partnership. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. They have a good working relationship. Red Bull as a team are coming back again as a real force in Formula One. Honda are really starting to get it right. So I think staying with Red Bull is a good idea. But if you look at the other teams that you could have gone to, Ferrari, who wants to go to Ferrari right now unless you're in a team that is in a worse situation and he isn't, is he Max Verstappen? He's not in a worse situation at Red Bull, or that much worse, even if Red Bull are slightly slower. And then you have Mercedes, who, of course, are in a better situation than Red Bull and are a better team. But I think it has become pretty clear that Lewis Hamilton is not going to retire. But I think another smart move here by Max Verstappen is that if not Lewis Hamilton, does or does not retire, at least he is signed and committed to a top team past 2021, because I think one thing that would have been very dumb for him to do would be to let his contract run out at the end of 2020 in the, I guess, assumption that Lewis Hamilton was going to leave, and then if Lewis Hamilton didn't leave, he'd be without a team for 2021, or be without a good team for 2021. So I think in case something big happens, again, a Hamilton retires, or even maybe he goes to Ferrari, even though I think that's a highly unlikely, thing that's going to happen. At least, if that doesn't happen, even though he might be expecting it, at least he is committed to a team post 2021, and he's not going to be left to, struggle in the Formula One wilderness for a year or so. So good, smart decision by Max Verstappen. Good to see that he wants to stay committed to Red Bull. And I think, honestly, it's a pretty good thing to be at that Red Bull team right now, as I mentioned before. And I think building, the Red Bull and Honda team around him is a pretty smart thing to do right now. Because if Lewis Hamilton is staying at Mercedes past this season, which I think he will, Hamilton isn't going anywhere then until probably, 2024? So why go to another team before Hamilton goes? Because Mercedes are still great once Hamilton finally does leave. Then you can, go to that team. But as long as Lewis Hamilton is at Mercedes, I just don't see the point in Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull. I just don't see the point. Unless McLaren, come out of nowhere and start being amazingly quick again and being at the top, then maybe he could go there. But if that doesn't happen, then again, as long as Lewis Hamilton is at Mercedes, the best thing for Max Verstappen to do is to build a team around himself at Red Bull. And that is what he is doing. But now let's get on to some other news. Robert Kubica, if you didn't know, guys, who of course drove for Williams last year, is now the test driver at Alfa Romeo. And I think that's a pretty good decision by Alfa to hire Kubica, because clearly he does give good technical information. He's very experienced in that role. He did that role at BMW back in the day. He did, I think, slightly at Renault before he then went to Williams. And of course, he did it at Williams as well. So good decision by Alfa. And hopefully his, technical feedback can help Alfa during the course of 2020. Very smart decision, I think, there by Alfa Romeo. And let's now, before we get on to another couple bits of news that isn't really to do about teams or drivers, let's finally get into Racing Point becoming Aston Martin for 2021. What a big piece of news this is, and it is a great piece of news because we have... Now, I'm not sure, before I, say what I'm going to say, I'm not sure what the absolute involvement of Aston Martin is going to be, but it's another big name coming back into Formula One, and I guess manufacturer, but I think it is still going to be Racing Point, just kind of badged as Aston Martin, I guess. But this is great news. This definitely helps Racing Point a lot financially, and in terms of their resources, also helps Aston Martin with, Lawrence Stroll buying up a bit of a stake, because as I understand, I think Aston Martin do have some financial trouble. Not massive trouble, I don't believe. If I am wrong, though, make sure to correct me on that. But again, good decision by Lawrence Stroll. And I think we have to put respect on his name, honestly, because he has saved so many jobs through doing this. So many, because even though Racing Point, were bought by, the Stroll family, their future was still not looking that secure or that great. So, very good decision by Lawrence Stroll. And I think, honestly, with the new factory, I believe that Racing Point are getting pretty soon. And with this, Aston Martin, I think Racing Point, they're a team on the move. Absolutely. They're a team on the move. And I'm so happy for them because I think the Racing Point team, when they were Force India as well, they were one of those teams where you said, if this team had money, they could be not right up there winning races, but they could be quite a strong Formula One team. And I really hope that post-2021, with the help of the budget cap and the new technical regulations, I really hope that all of this can propel this team into a position that, maybe they or we couldn't have dreamed of for this team before. By the way, credit to racefans.net for this picture. What it is basically is just a Racing Point in, I guess, Aston Martin colours. But yeah, this is such great news. Such great news. This team is one of the best in Formula One in terms of getting results and performing at the track. And now that it's getting more of a financial more of a financial backing, it's a great thing. It is a great thing, and it's a great thing for Formula One because it could see yet another team being able to possibly go after the big boys after 2021. So good news, and I really hope that this team in the new decade, the 2020s, can really, start marching forward as Aston Martin. It is going to be a pretty fun decade to see where this team goes, and I really hope again that they do go far with what they're going to get. But guys, let me know in the chat, what do you think about Max Verstappen signing a new contract, and this news about Racing Point becoming Aston Martin for 2021 and beyond. So, of course, 2020 with the last year's Racing Point, and then next year it will be Aston Martin. Now, before I read your guys' comments, I'm going to have a quick drink for my throat, and then, I'll read your guys' comments for a few minutes. Right. Let's see what you guys are saying. Josiah Boateng says Verstappen isn't winning a title as long as Hamilton is in F1. I'm not sure about that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Hamilton, as long as Hamilton is in F1, if Verstappen didn't win one. I wouldn't be that surprised, but I'm not sure that'll actually be the case. Right, let's find some other comments here quick. Dos Days, Red Bull makes much better calls in the heat of the moment. I think they're more clever with the strats. It's not only with that when it comes to them and Ferrari. They're just a smarter, better team. They're better personnel. And again, they're smarter. They know, in a, I guess, heated, tense situation, when you're fighting at the front of the field, they just know how to handle it better. I mean, I know it's Ferrari, but if you look at those engineers and personnel at Ferrari, they're quite a young team, and there's lots of people in that team that don't have quite the experience that, a Mercedes or a Red Bull has. So that does play a big factor against, of course, Ferrari. Right. Let's find. And Mike saying 2023. Right. Thank you guys for correcting me on that. I knew it was either 2023 or 2024. And then, of course, Leclerc is for 2024. We've already talked about that. I think the last podcast we talked about that. And that is also, I think, for Leclerc. I wouldn't say smart move, but a good move, and really the only move he could make, because He's not going to go to Mercedes, not going to go to Red Bull, and then there's no other big teams out there that can fight for victories except the one he's at. So, yeah, Leclerc couldn't really do anything other than sign a contract till 2024. Lappy, do you see an Aston Martin team ever breaking out the midfield post 2021? That's hard to say. I mean, it's very hard to say, to be honest, how any of the teams are going to do post 2021 because I don't think people understand how big the technical regulations are. They are that big that we cannot even talk about what we think the teams are going to be like in 2021. Maybe we can talk about the direction they're going in and, you know, the drivers and how they're looking going into the future. But in terms of the teams and how they're going to do results-wise, we need to see how 2021 starts in terms of the first few races, because if the field order is the same, then we can, you know, say whether this team's going to progress or fall down or whatever. But if it's all jumbled around like it was in 2009, then, you know, we're going to have to reevaluate all the teams and drivers, really. And I'm hoping it does have a 2009 effect. I'm not, you know, hoping that Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, you know, drop near the back. I just want a more competitive field, which I don't think is that hard to ask with the right regulations for the sport. But let's say the order for next season is the same or similar, but the gap is closer between the top and the midfield. I think they can maybe get into a position where they can get podiums, but I'm not sure it'll ever be race victory good enough. But again, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But I think definitely this can propel them back towards podiums, but I just think race victories are a bit too far for that team. Lawrence Stroll is the GOAT. Can't believe someone is saying that, because I remember a couple of years ago, everyone hated Lawrence Stroll. Absolutely hated him. Aston Martin Red Bull might become Honda Red Bull Racing. That's from Mike. And then Josh says it's Honda Red Bull now. I thought, isn't it Red Bull Racing Honda? I'm not sure. 28 says kudos to Mr. Stroll indeed. Again, we've given him a lot of, I think, criticism over the past, but he has actually done some very good things. Buying Force India and saving the team, and now putting it in a much stronger position with this whole Aston Martin deal. You've got to give credit to him. As much as maybe you don't like his influence in Formula 1 or his son, you've got to give the man credit. He has saved so many jobs, so many families from losing a living. You've got to give the man credit whether you like him or not. Rooksfoot, great to see you, mate. Says good for Red Bull to get Verstappen a long contract. If Merkel Ferrari really went after him, it would cost them more. Yeah, if Mercedes or Ferrari were going to really go after him, it would cost them a lot of money to get Max Verstappen nailed down to a contract. I mean, I don't know how much Max is getting paid, but I'm going to guess it's a lot. And maybe right up there with Lewis Hamilton in terms of money. Maybe not as much as Lewis Hamilton, but it's probably close. And I think Max is definitely earning quite a lot of money. So, yeah, if you were going to go after him, you'd have to throw the house at him in terms of money. Let's find a couple more comments here. Then we'll get on to the whole Chinese Grand Prix thing. A possibility of it being cancelled also. It is possible that the Vietnam Grand Prix could be cancelled for the same reason, because of the coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, that's currently hitting the world. Josiah, just remember Ferrari boss was head of engineering the year prior and was only promoted because Arriva Bene got wrongly fired. Well, the situation there at Ferrari was that the old boss, Sergio Marchionne, who of course passed away about a year and a half ago, he wanted Bonotto to become the team principal. And I think was going to make that decision. So when Sergio Marchionne passed away, God rest his soul, Ferrari's new boss couldn't really go against that out of respect. And I think who's the new boss? I think it's Louis Camilleri, I think it is. So he couldn't really go against it. So he had to go with that decision. So Maurizio Arrivabene effectively was out of a job towards the start of 2018, which again, I completely disagree with. The guy turned Ferrari from being kind of midfield, honestly, in 2014. They were kind of a midfield team, an upper midfield team. He turned them from that into 2015 being 3 race victories, many podiums, second best car on the grid. Quite a good year, honestly, for Ferrari, especially compared to 2014. Of course, then 2016 was not that great of a season, even though I think the pace of their car wasn't actually that bad in the first half of the season. They just failed to take a lot of opportunities that did come to them. But in terms of results, it wasn't that great of a season. But then in 2017 and 2018, Ferrari, even though, yes, they bottled it, yes, they should have done better, they pushed Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton quite far in a world championship battle. For the first 4 years of being a Ferrari team boss, that's not too bad. I mean, if you look at Jean Todt and his first, and I actually did this about a year ago when I compared or was talking about how Arrivabene should not have been sacked as Ferrari team boss. I compared Arrivabene and Jean Todt's records in their first 4 full years as team boss. And Arrivabene, even though, yes, that, in current F1 you've got more races than they had back then, Arrivabene had clearly a better record than Jean Todt had. I mean, Jean Todt, in his first 4 full years, which was 94, 95, 96, 97, only contended for the championship once, had quite a few less race wins and a lot less podiums. And he kept his job, and look what he did with Ferrari later on. So, again, sacking Maurizio Arrivabene was such a poorly, thought out, timed decision. They should have given Maurizio until, in my opinion, the end of 2020. I think that would have been long enough for Arrivabene. And if he still hadn't, pushed the team forward enough, then fine, sack him, get rid of him. But he wasn't given enough time. I mean, again, look at Jean Todt. He was given 7 years until Ferrari won a championship. It takes time. It takes time, especially when you're running such a highly pressurized team, which is Ferrari. It takes time. So I don't know, why they got rid of him. I don't understand why. Don't get it. Right. Let's read off a couple more comments and then we'll get to the final couple stories. And by the way, guys, if there's any stories that I have not talked about that have, occurred this year, then make sure to mention them quickly before I come off. Because, again, if I have forgotten to mention them, then, best to remind me now so I can make sure to cover that or go off on it. And by the way, guys, it's a live podcast. And I just want to say, it's quite funny. When you see on my channel that a video is premiering, that doesn't mean it's a live stream. What it is effectively a recorded video, but it's premiering, I guess, live. And you can, comment to each other in the live chat, which is similar to a live stream. It's the same in that aspect, but all it is a recorded video playing as a stream, but it isn't actually a stream. Just want to clarify that to some people who I understandably know they get confused, and it is at first confusing, but once you understand, then it's easy to figure out. Right, let me read this final comment before we get into the last bit of news from Lappy. And it is, he says, would you agree with that Lando Norris may end up like Jenson Button, being a consistent driver, but not winning loads of championships? I've never thought about Lando Norris in comparison to a Jenson Button, to be honest. I'm not sure what to make of Lando, if I'm honest, because I didn't see enough in 2019 to suggest he's really going to be that big of a deal in Formula One. I mean, yeah, maybe he can get a couple podiums in a third or fourth best car if it's close enough to that type of position. But again, in 2019, I didn't quite see enough to really suggest that Lando's going to be that much of a big deal in Formula One. I've definitely not seen anything to suggest the guy is ever going to win a world championship or even be near one. So it's hard to say. I think if Lando in 2020, and I just uploaded a video about this, you can go and check it out, guys, in the description. It's called McLaren 2020 Back to Business ? That video I uploaded yesterday. So yeah, if you have not seen it yet, then make sure to go and check that out. But I said in that Lando has got to get on top of Carlos Sainz in 2020, because if he doesn't, it's going to be Carlos's team. Because if Carlos beats him 2 years in a row, 2019 and 2020, then why would McLaren continue giving Lando equal status in the team? It wouldn't really make any sense, especially considering how good of a driver Carlos Sainz is. They'd have to give Carlos a bit more of a number one leading role. So if Lando doesn't quite hit the mark this year, then he might be not just another, just another number two driver, but he might have to move to a different team in a few years' time to really establish himself as a leading driver for a good team. And 2020 is a pretty big year for Lando. Again, he's got to really push Carlos Sainz hard, and if he does beat him, that's a great year for him. And it will, I think, really establish himself in the sport as a very good young driver. But if he has a similar season this season to what he had last season, then things aren't looking that great for him. And I still think, honestly, to a degree, that Lando Norris is overrated. I don't think the guy is that great. I don't think he'll ever be, from what I've seen so far, I just don't see world title potential. I could be proven wrong, but I just don't see it yet. So, hopefully we see that soon. But let's now get into a couple final stories. The first one is the possibility of a couple races being cancelled. And these two races being possibly cancelled on the Formula One calendar are quite early on in the 2020 calendar. First off, the Chinese Grand Prix, which takes place in the middle of April. Now, of course, we have the coronavirus, which is hitting countries worldwide. It, started in the country of China and is quite bad at the moment, and travel in and out of the country is non-existent, basically. Not looking good. Not looking good at all. And there's an F1 strategy group meeting, which is taking place tomorrow, where they're going to talk about this, and this will be, of course, the biggest topic when it comes to, anything they're going to talk about Formula One-wise. Now, if this keeps on persisting or gets worse, then I don't see how this Grand Prix goes ahead. I just don't see how it goes ahead, because you can't take a risk like this. With a new virus that, people don't know how to treat it quite fully yet, and it's spreading like wildfire. You just can't take that risk. So if, they don't have their guarantee, or enough of a guarantee, that it's going to get better, by April, then they've got to cancel it. They've got to. Or at least move the Grand Prix back to where it used to be on the calendar when it first came onto the calendar about, 15 years ago, to late September, early October. But apparently they will not be doing that. And they were actually thinking about swapping it with the Russian Grand Prix, which I actually think would be a pretty good idea. But apparently they're not going to do that. So I guess if the Grand Prix does not happen in the middle of April, it won't be happening at all. Because I don't see what other time period they can do it in, which would make enough sense and that would work. So, honestly, at the moment, if I was to guess and predict what's going to happen, I don't think the Chinese Grand Prix is going to go ahead. I just don't see it happening. Because, when an outbreak of a virus happens, it normally takes about 6 months at least for cures and stuff like that to come around, and for protocols to try and handle the disease. It takes a bit of time, and this is a relatively new thing, so not looking good at all. And if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I don't see this Grand Prix happening at all. So that is a shame, but life and health comes first. And there is a chance at the Vietnam Grand Prix, of course, the first ever Vietnamese Grand Prix, which is taking place on the streets of Hanoi in early April. There is the possibility that that might not be taking place because, of course, the country of Vietnam is very close to the country of China. And in Asia, it's quite bad at the moment, this virus. So, yeah, not looking good. I think this Grand Prix, though, has a much bigger chance of going ahead because from what it looks like, it hasn't been as bad in this country as it has been, of course, in the country where it started. But it's still not looking great at the moment. And, of course, with the whole travel restrictions to Asia at the moment, that is getting worse, not better. It's not a great situation, is it? So keep your eyes peeled on the possibility of this being cancelled. Of course, we'll get news once what's going to happen with the Chinese Grand Prix, which I think it'll be cancelled. But keep your eyes peeled for news about this Grand Prix, because I think that might be quite a close call. Because, the Vietnamese Grand Prix takes place in about 2 months from now. So they've got to make a decision very quickly whether this Grand Prix is going to take place, because they don't want to get too close to the date and then cancel it. They've got to do it within a good time period. So, they don't have to, start sending freight out there and parts out there and all that stuff. They've got to get these decisions made, tomorrow or in the next week or so. It's that critical, to be honest. And the final bit of news, which is to do with possible Grand Prix in the future, I guess, is the Miami Grand Prix for 2021, which apparently is happening, even though I don't think it will. So there is an update to the news about that Grand Prix. Now, you guys will remember the original track layout of the Miami Grand Prix. I think I showed it on a past stream. Can't remember exactly when, but I think I did. This is a revised layout that, funnily enough, was put out on the same day that the people of the, I think it's Miami-Dade County, was supposed to be voting on whether this is going to go ahead or not, or whether to delay it or something. I don't know the full information about it. If anyone does, then make sure to post it in the comments or chat. But funnily enough, on the same day, they posted a new revised track layout. So let's look at it. Now, from what I can see, so you can see here on the right-hand side, if you're looking at it from, this angle, from the right-hand side, or our right-hand side of the stadium, the football stadium, that is where the grid is going to be. I don't know which way, though, they are going to go. I don't know if it's going to be through this left-hander and then right-hander, or if it's going to be this, kink and then into a double right and then a long straight. I'm not quite sure. But when I look at this track, I think it looks terrible. I just don't see that many good corners. Yeah, just a lot of the corners to me don't look that good. I mean, there's parts of the track where I think they're going for a bit of a Baku-style thing, you know, trying to give enough acceleration points for cars to follow. But it just doesn't look like that good of a track to me. And why do we have to race in Miami? Can't we go and race somewhere where, you know, in a city or a place in the world that hasn't seen Formula One before, like we are with Vietnam? Or can we not go to a place in the world that hasn't seen Formula One for a long time, like Argentina, for example? Why can't we go back there? They want to have Formula One back, I'm sure of it. Doesn't sound like the people in Miami want a Formula One race. And we've already got a race in America. And it's a very good track in a part of the world or a part of the United States that really does love its racing. So why are we racing in Miami? I don't think that many people want to race in Miami from a racing point of view. All this is going to be is an American version of the Valencia track. That's all this is going to be. It's not going to be anything special, just another Grand Prix that we obviously, you know, watch and witness, but we don't really remember. I hope I'm wrong and it's a great track and it produces great races if it will be on the calendar, but I just don't see the point. I don't see the point. Again, I'd rather go back to a city that actually, you know, would love to see Formula One, or that, you know, has seen it before, hasn't seen it before. I just don't think this is going to work. This reminds me a lot of the New Jersey Grand Prix, that if anyone remembers was supposed to take place in 2013 and it never happened. I'm hoping that's the case with this. Apologies to any Miami Formula One fans out there, but I just don't see the point. I just don't see the point. I would rather go race in a million other places than this. And I don't get the whole fascination of racing around an American football stadium. So what? Who cares? Who gives a fuck? Anyway, after that, I've completely destroyed the idea of that Grand Prix. Let's see what you guys have to say about the Chinese Grand Prix and possible Miami Grand Prix. That again, why do we have to have a Grand Prix in Miami? I'd rather go back to Valencia. I mean, at least the last race in Valencia was great, and we know what corners produce what. So I'd rather go back to that one than this. This just doesn't look like anything. It just looks terrible. And of course, Hockenheim, as Mike's saying in the chat. How is Hockenheim not on the calendar? Best race, in my opinion, of all time. Call me crazy, which you all will. Last year, that was for me the best race of all time. Best race I've ever seen. And I have seen Canada 2011, of course. And it's not on the calendar for 2020. How? How? Right, let's find some comments from you guys about this. So, mostly an F1 fan says, shame if they have to cancel Vietnam. It would be, because I think, you know what, I'm quietly surprised. I'm quietly excited for that race, because I actually think we could get quite a banging race around that track. Because from looking at the track, there's a couple parts of the track that I think could produce something, but this, I just don't think it will. But yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back a picture because I don't want to look at that Miami track anymore. Yeah, I'm quietly excited for that Vietnam Grand Prix. I think it might be quite a good race, but yeah, it would be a shame. It would be. And I think the people, you know, locally are excited for that Grand Prix to happen. And I would honestly rather race around the Vietnam track than the Miami track. I can tell you that. Vietnam will go ahead for sure, hopefully. Neil says, honestly, better to be safe than sorry. Absolutely. Mr. Random Guy, coronavirus is basically just Wuhan. The rest of the cases are very scattered, so I think the race will still go ahead. I'm not sure about that. And another thing is, even if it is, secluded to a single city or area of the country, getting in and out of that country right now is very, very hard for obvious reasons. So even if it goes ahead, getting in and out of that country is going to be so hard. So, yeah. Not looking great. Connor, Ellaby, what about the Great Britain Grand Prix due to leaving the EU? No problem with that. Lappy, I think one American race is enough. It is. If you're going to go to another American track, make sure it's something that really does add something obviously quite a bit different, but in a good way. The only reason Liberty want to race in Miami is because it's Miami. It's got nothing to do with the track, nothing to do with, if there's Formula One fans locally. It's got nothing to do with that. It is literally because it will look pretty on TV. That is the only reason they want to race in Miami. Which is an incorrect reason, in my opinion. Right, let's find some other comments about this. Spider Monkey, now the people of Miami is protesting against F1. From what I've heard, the people that are, voting for whether this race is going to happen or not, from what I've heard, people don't want the race, from what I've heard. I could be wrong, but from what I've heard and seen, I don't think there's that much support locally for the Miami Grand Prix, to be honest. What the hell is that part on the left? The semicircle? Let me go back to it. Yeah. There's lots of little kinks and I guess faster corners, but you can guarantee these will be parts of the track where it's very tight and you can't overtake. So, yeah. This part of the track, the closest to the screen, where it looks a bit more flat out, is probably the most interesting part I can see of the track. But other than that, yeah, it just doesn't look that good. Right, let's find some other comments here if I can. F1 Debate Show, great to see you, mate. Says Africa needs an F1 race, absolutely, and it needs to be at the is it Kyalami track where they of course had the South African Grand Prix. That track has to be there. That track is miles better than that track and quite a few tracks that have been on the Formula One calendar in the last few years, and a couple that are on the calendar right now. And it's very sad that, South Africa had a place on the calendar for so long and was such a long-standing older Grand Prix venue that now it's not on the calendar anymore. And Liberty and, people love the older venues and older tracks. I don't see why South Africa has been disrespected so much. I mean, maybe, the South African government don't want a Grand Prix as much as they wanted to in the past, but, I think it would be a great thing to have a South African Grand Prix. Again, it's a historical thing. It was on the calendar in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. It'd be a great thing to have that Grand Prix back. So, hopefully, that does happen. Right. Victor Bangle says, should go back to Indy. It'd be better than Miami. I'm not sure I'd go back to Indy, though, because I didn't like the track that much. Of course, the final sector and, the banked straight was great. But other than that, it wasn't that special. But still, miles better than that track. F1 in LA would be nice. Probably not. Istanbul Park. Who said that? I think it was. Yeah, Josiah. Istanbul Park. Absolutely. That's another track. How is that track not on the calendar? All the drivers love it. I don't think there was really anyone out there who said they really hated or despised it, but it's not on the calendar. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I mean, maybe it's because of the political situation in the area. I don't know, but if they can make it happen, they've got to make it happen. Mostly an F1 fan. Bring back Malaysia. Again, another track that should be on the calendar. Lappy, what about, or he says he saw some talk about Jerez as the new Spanish Grand Prix. I hope not, because that track is horrible for racing. It's very tight. There's too many corners, one after another. There's no real straights or heavy enough braking zones to really make a move. It would be probably worse than the Circuit of Catalunya, which can be, at the best of times, not that great for passing. So, yeah, hopefully not. Right. Let's find, I think, a couple more comments, and then we'll come off stream. Now we've all caught up on news. By the way, thank all you guys for coming along for the stream. And, yeah, great to be back live for the first time in over a month. And I'll let you guys know, content-wise, what's coming up in a minute on the channel. Of course, next week, it'll be car reveal week, so cannot wait for that. Doesn't Finland have a track? Kimi Ring? Yep, I think that's what it's called. I think we will eventually get a race in Finland, because it's a disgrace, really, that we haven't had a race in Finland. The amount of greatness they have given to Formula One, we should be giving something back to them, to be honest. I think it will happen eventually, that Grand Prix. Probably at that track, but I think it will happen, for sure. I don't see a situation where it's never going to happen. Even if it's only for 2 or 3 years on the calendar, I think we will race in Finland 1,000,000% in the next 30, 40 years. I guarantee you it will happen. Right. Let's find couple comments here. One of the newer ones. Simon Tree, are there any other Grand Prix this year under threat? There was some talk about Australia because of the bushfires, but I think that's gone away now. I have no idea if the bushfires have got better or not. I'm guessing not, but I don't think the Grand Prix will be cancelled in Melbourne. And no, I think that's it, really. Vietnam, Shanghai, maybe Suzuka if the disease, the coronavirus gets even worse. Maybe the Suzuka race might be under threat if it really spreads bad, but that's in October, so plenty of time until we even start thinking about that. Yeah, it's only Vietnam and China at the moment. Right, let's find one good final comment to end on. And then we'll end the stream. I have seen that, by the way. Sam Reen says Argentina is in talks to return to the calendar. There's a new sports minister, I think, in that country, and he said that he wants Formula One to come back. So I'm guessing he used to be a Formula One fan when it was on the calendar, which was what? Late 90s, mid 90s, something like that. So, I mean, they've got Moto GP in that country as well. So clearly there is still a hunger and desire for motorsport in that country. And if the threat of the Brazilian Grand Prix is under, if that continues, then why not, if we're going to have a South American race, go to Argentina again. Why not? Right. You know what? I'll end on these two comments from F1 Debate Show and Sam Reen. So, Sam Reen, will you do a live stream for every car reveal? I did say this earlier, but I'll say this again because, of course, not everyone was able to join earlier. The plan for car reveals is effectively the exact same thing, but they will not be live. They will instead be recorded. This is so I can get the car reveal videos out quicker, and they'll be a bit shorter and better structured. And then, yeah, they'll just be better, I think, videos if I put it out recorded and have it, not be as long as it was before. The first car reveal, if you don't know, is, of course, Ferrari next Tuesday, about the same time as it is now. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. But, yeah, all the car reveals will be recorded videos. But don't worry, as soon as the cars are revealed, my video talking about it will be out probably 30 to 45 minutes after that happens. So don't worry. It'll be out that quickly. You'll think it's live. And what was the other comment? F1 Debate Show. By the way, go and check out F1 Debate Show. Great channel. Make sure to go and check them out. They've just, a couple months ago hit 1,000 subs. So, yeah, make sure to go and support them. It's great to see you back, mate. What are your plans for testing for yourself? Well, as I said earlier, again, unfortunately, can't go to testing because it is a very expensive trip that I just cannot afford right now. I am, though, hoping to go to the Spanish Grand Prix in May. I am setting that as an aim. I'm not going to say whether I'm going to go or not until I absolutely know, though, which may be until the middle of April, end of April. But that is the aim, to instead go to the Spanish Grand Prix in May. So what I'm going to do instead is do watch-alongs for testing, because, of course, it will be live on Sky Sports F1. So if any of you are at work or at school or college or, whatever, and you can't watch testing, then make sure to come to this channel and click on one of the streams that will be live at the time, and you can listen to me just chat shit for 8 hours about testing. And obviously I'll give you updates as to, who's setting what lap times, who's on track, if there's any crashes or anything, people stop on track, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, if you want to keep across testing and you're unable to actually watch it, then make sure to again come to the channel and have a listen along, watch along to testing. But I think that is about it for tonight's podcast and stream. Thank you guys for coming along for tonight's stream. Hopefully you guys are all doing well today on what is a Tuesday night for me. And yeah, thank you guys for coming along. As I've said before, car reveals next week, then testing. And then, of course, it'll be very soon the first couple of races. And yeah, the next video, I don't know when it will be. The next guaranteed video will be the Ferrari car reveal video, which will be this time next week, about the same time as it is now. So book that date in your diary, because that is a guaranteed video that is coming. I might upload a video between now and then, but again, not a guarantee. Once I know if there's a video coming before next Tuesday, then I'll let you guys know for sure. But don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. We'll be doing plenty of podcast episodes during 2020. Of course, don't forget to subscribe for the car reveals coming, the watch-alongs, all of that stuff. Don't forget to subscribe for that content. You can either do it on the bottom right of the screen, or you can go to my homepage and do it there and hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when I upload or do anything. And also hit the like button for more content like this. Don't forget as well to smash that like button if you do enjoy this type of content, because it does help me, be able to see if you guys do like it or not. As well, comment down below what you thought of this video, and comment down below anything that you think about what I've said during this podcast episode. And also, don't forget to join the Discord server, link below in the description. We have well over 400 people in that server now, and it's growing all the time, and it will be growing quite a lot as well during 2020. So if you want to join that ever-growing community over there, make sure to do so. As well, follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Check out my latest video, McLaren in 2020, and talking about, how they're going to do this season. There's a link below to that video as well. And don't forget to like my Facebook page, which is ChazzaHDF1 on Facebook. Don't forget to hit that with a like for more content like this. And as well, check out my website, ChazzaHD.com, again, for more content like this. But guys, until my next video, which is, again, guaranteed to be this time next week for the Ferrari car reveal. Hopefully before then, we'll see. My next stream is probably going to be the weekend before testing, where we'll probably do even more in-depth analysis of the cars that have been revealed so far. We'll stream and, look at them all together. That's probably the next time I'm going to stream. And then after that, of course, it will be the testing watch-alongs after that. So until then, guys, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.